Starting with hand planes can feel awkward. It took me a while to realize that it had less to do with fancy tricks and strength than it had to do with fundamentals and taking your time. Let's walk through the basics and hopefully I can help you get started on your hand plane journey. How's it? My name is Dylan and welcome to another edition of Ply Creations. In this one, which is the third in my basic hand plane series, we're looking at the absolute bare bones basics of using a hand plane. And hopefully by the end of this video, I'll be able to alleviate some of the frustration you may be experiencing when using a hand plane. We'll be looking at the depth adjustment, we'll be looking at the lateral adjustment. We'll literally be coming to grips with the hand plane. I'll show you how you grip the tool. I'll also be showing you my preferred body position while using the hand tool. Finally, we are also going to be looking at entering and exiting the cut and where you put pressure down on the tool while using it on a stick. Before we do continue though, I'd like to show you the components of what makes up the whole, and I'm showing you an image on the screen. We'll quickly run through the parts of the hand plane. First we start with the sole. That's the bottom part. That's the part that sits on either your workbench or your workpiece as you are using the tool. Then at the front of the hand plane, that is called the toe. Sometimes it's called the nose. Going towards the rear of the hand plane, or the very end of the hand plane, is also called the heel. Going up from there, we find the front knob. You've guessed it, it's called the knob. Backwards from there is we'll find the lever cap. Then we find the chip brake, and finally we have the plain blade or iron. And all of this rests on the frog. The frog is bedded at what we call a standard bedding angle, which is 45 degrees. Just visible behind the blade is the lateral adjuster. That's responsible for setting the blade parallel to the bottom of the sole. And then downwards from there we have the depth adjustment knob, which does exactly what it says. It sets the depth of your cut. And then finally at the rear of the hand plane is you'll find the handle or the tote. What you do not see on the image that I've just shown you, on the sole or the bottom of the hand plane you also have the mouth. This is where the blade protrudes into your workpiece as you use the plain blade, and it's also responsible for, that's where the shavings exit while you are using the hand plane and taking shavings. Before we start, I am assuming two things. One is that your blade is reasonably sharp when you use it. If you struggle to sharpen your blade, I've got a video on my channel where I show you how I sharpen a chisel. Now the basic premise is the same irrespective of sharpening a chisel or a plain blade. If you'd like me to do a video specific on you sharpening a plain blade, let me know in the comment section. And the second thing I'm assuming is that your hand plane is set up to within reasonable tolerances. It does not need to be tuned to perfection to work. You'll find a lot of information on the internet as well as on YouTube on how to set up a hand plane. I'm actually working on my first online course that is based on my curriculum that I use when I train individuals in my own workshop. We'll be starting with the depth adjustment. I'll bring you into the bench so I can show you up close of how that system works. I'd like to introduce you to two more parts that you wouldn't have seen on the image that I showed you earlier. The first is the yoke. That is responsible with the depth adjustment knob to either pull or push the blade deeper into the hand plane. And secondly is the adjustment screw for your frog. That's responsible for setting your frog forward or back and then opening or closing the mouth. If it's not in the forward position and keeping the frog in place, the moment you start using the hand plane, the pressure from the wood as you enter the cut will come into the direction of the rear of the hand plane and may bump back your frog and change the geometry of this whole system. So just get a screwdriver, turn that clockwise until you feel resistance, and that will keep the frog in its current position. So have a look at that before you do anything else. Coming back to the depth adjuster. Now the yoke extends past the bedding surface of your frog, and as I'm turning the depth adjustment in or out, you will notice that that point or tip of the yoke either pushes down or pulls up. So when it pushes down, the cut gets deeper. As it pulls up, the cut gets more shallow. This system has got two gotchas that may catch you out. The first is that the thread on your depth adjustment knob is reversed. So if you live by the mantra righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, you'll find that if you turn the knob the right way around or clockwise, it actually feeds it out, and if you turn it anti-clockwise, it feeds it in. In my head, anytime I screw something in, I'm expecting the cut to get deeper, but in this case, or the case of a hand plane, that is reversed. The second is what is commonly called backlash, and let me show you how that works. I'm adding the plain blade together with a chip brake. The yoke sits inside a recess that is cut into the chip brake. As I'm feeding the depth adjustment in or out, the yoke will either engage the top edge of the recess or the bottom edge of the recess and either pull the blade or push it back into the cut. As I'm feeding back, you'll notice that the yoke takes up the slack and then engages the bottom edge of that recess, and the space between the yoke engaging the top and the bottom is the backlash, or is the cause of the backlash that is often talked about. Why is that important? Let's say I'm making a cut and the cut is too deep. I'm bringing the blade out, so I'm relieving the cut, and unless I take the slack back up, I now have that space between the bottom of the yoke and the edge of the recess. And the moment I penetrate the cut, the blade bumps back, and that will then adjust the depth of the cut, and that can be quite a source of frustration, especially if you're a beginner. So do remember that if you've relieved the cut, or you've taken the blade out of the cut to make a lighter cut, that you take up that backlash only until the point that you feel some resistance. Remember, the lever cap is going to be on top of this. You're not going to see this. Also, the lever cap places tension on this whole system, so you only feed the yoke back until you feel the resistance where it connects against the bottom edge of the recess, and then you should be good to go without being afraid that the blade will bump back onto the frog. So next we'll move on to the lateral adjuster. This is the lateral adjustment lever. At the bottom you'll see it gets a little bit bigger. Yours may look different from mine. Sometimes there's a bearing in there, and depending on the age or the price point of your hand plane, there may be a slight difference. That larger area there engages with a recess that's cut into the back of your hand plane blade. I'm putting the blade in, and then the lateral adjuster then engages into the recess. Pushing the lateral adjuster to my right will pull the blade on my right out of the cut, so it will lessen the cut on this corner of the blade. Pushing it to the left will do the same on the other side. Not a difficult system to get used to or learn how to use. However, I keep forgetting what side I need to push the lateral adjuster. So what I've taught myself to do is to push the lateral adjuster towards the side where the cut is too deep. So if I cut is too deep on my right, I push the lateral adjustment to my right, and then vice versa. Of course, your lever cap needs to be in place when you are using your hand plane, and the moment I have it in, I have more resistance to moving the lateral adjustment left or right. Of course, because of the fitting of the bottom of the adjuster into the recess, I do have a little bit of slack that I need to take up before I start affecting the cut itself. And I find that very small adjustments are sometimes difficult if I grab the lateral adjuster, and just simply push it to the one or the other side. And the way that I get around that is, I hope I can show you this, is if my hand is around the hand plane and I'm working with it and I need to adjust the lateral adjuster towards me, I'll bring my hand up, rest the upper parts of my finger where my index finger sort of meets my thumb, push that against the lateral adjustment, and I will simply just push my hand across very slightly, and during use you will barely see me move the lateral adjustment itself. From the other side, if I need to go in the other direction, is I'll have my hand plane here, I'll bring my thumb up and I'll simply twist my wrist while keeping my thumb stationary, and that will push the lateral adjustment in the other direction. So that's the lateral adjustment. Rather simple, it's just a case of remembering in which direction you need to push it. The grip on your hand plane is somewhat determined by the design of the tote or the handle in the back, and this is designed for what is called a 4-finger grip. So as I place my hand around the hand plane, my bottom 3 fingers are at the bottom around the handle and my thumb comes over the top. This overhang here on the tote sits neatly into the area of your hand here, providing a little bit more security in the grip, and of course you can then handle the hand plane. Your index finger comes around to the side of your frog. Where I struggle is I will sometimes place my index finger on the blade, and by pushing too hard on the blade I can adjust the lateral adjustment. So I need to consciously remind myself that it's better for me to have my index finger on the side of the frog rather on the side of the blade. The reason you have your index finger there is it's responsible for steering your hand plane. So by flexing my wrist or twisting my wrist, my index finger is pushing my hand plane into a direction where I would like it to go, and that allows me to control where I'm taking the cut on the workpiece. Also, I can twist my wrist if I need to, and my index finger allows me to keep or to maintain control on the hand plane. The grip on the front knob is, I can almost do a video by itself, handling all the different reasons why you might want to adjust how you grip the front knob. Often you will see woodworkers on videos on YouTube and so forth constantly changing the grip on the front knob depending on what they want the hand plane to do. So typically you may see somebody put their thumb on the toe of the hand plane with their fingers on the side of the workpiece, and that acts as a fence. So that will determine how far across the workpiece you are taking a shaving. Often they'll just put their fingers down if they want to lessen up the pressure on the cut. What happened to me when I first started using a hand plane is my grip was so tight that I would get blisters on the inside or on the back of my hand, and I tend to over grip the plane. So instead of gripping the plane like this, which is sometimes required if I'm taking a heavy cut, but consciously I need to force myself to put a light grip just with my fingers on the front knob, and by doing that is try and control the amount of pressure that I have down on my hand plane. So that is coming to grips, so to speak, with your hand plane. While we're talking on pressure, let's talk about entering and exiting the cut and where you place pressure on the hand plane during the planing process. Before we get into the pressure points, or where to put pressure onto your hand plane while you are using it, I'd like to show you what I found to be the best way to actually start the cut. Now, I do woodworking shows where I do hand tool demos, and often I allow visitors to try out my hand planes and just get a feel for hand planes for themselves. And what will typically happen is they will very slowly push the hand plane forward until the blade's cutting edge engages into the end of the workpiece, and then they try to push into the cut itself. What is a better way to do this is bring your hand plane back and bring the cutting edge away from the end of your workpiece, and then start pushing from there. Build a head of steam, build a little bit of momentum, so by the time your blade meets the workpiece, it gets into the cut and you continue with the cut going forward, similar to this. You can skew the hand plane one side or the other if it's a hard species of wood, and that slices into the end of the workpiece and just allows the hand plane to penetrate easier as you follow through on the cut. Quickly going to change the camera position so I can show you where to apply pressure to the hand plane during the planing process. I'm in the bad habit of leaving a hump in the middle of my workpieces, often, well, on the edge of the workpiece when I use a hand plane. When I work on the face of boards or larger boards, I will typically hollow them out or cup them, but that's a topic for another day. The correct way to go about placing pressure on the hand plane is to follow the tip I gave you previously. Is when you start the cut, place most of your pressure on the toe of your hand plane. You enter the cut, and as the tote crosses the end of your workpiece, you equalize the pressure onto the back of the hand plane. So now you have equal pressure front and back of the hand plane. You continue with the stroke or the cut, and as you exit the cut on the other side of your wood, as you release the pressure or you relieve the pressure on the toe of the hand plane, and you move more pressure into the back of your hand. What I will sometimes typically do is, as I exit the cut at the end, is I will completely release the front knob and then just continue pushing through with my back hand. And that's how I manage the pressure. Now, the reason I leave a hump on the edges of my workpieces is when I start the cut, I have a tendency to put too much pressure on the back of the hand plane, and as I exit the cut, I may put too much pressure on the front of the hand plane, and that results in a hump in the middle of my workpieces. And I've got a nice long section of African mahogany in my tail vise, and the reason it's so long is so that I can show you how to use the bigger muscle groups in your body to plane all day long without getting tired too quickly. Anyone who has used one of these to process lumber will likely tell you that it can be hard work and be quite tiring. Getting tired will affect the quality of your work, will affect the accuracy of your work. So you want to stack the odds in your favor and be able to plane consistently for as long as you possibly can. And you do that by literally stacking the odds in your favor, by stacking your upper body over your center of gravity, and you need to lower your center of gravity. And I'll do a demo in a minute. That might not necessarily seem relevant, but I like to think I'm 1.72 meters tall. My health practitioner seems to disagree. He says I'm 1.69. But the reason that's relevant is ultimately, to some extent, that also determines the height of your workbench. Now you'll see my workbench is quite low. It's just lower than my hips. I think it's about 800 millimeters high last time I checked. And what this allows you is to drop your center of gravity and then process lumber using a hand plane. Of course, it has the negative where if I'm doing fine work, I cannot necessarily see what I'm doing. My optometrist always says, well, at your age, what you can expect is your eyes to weaken. I'm looking at my mini workbench across on the other side of my workshop, but that's what I then use on top of this workbench to bring my workpieces up so I can actually see what I'm doing. And you can use a Moxon vise like in the same manner. By the way, I've got plans for my mini workbench on my website. I'm leaving a link in the description as well as on the screen. You can go and check that out and you build it for yourself to combine with the workbench, or you can build it as a standalone workbench if you're limited in space or you're building small items. But I digress. Back to lowering your center of gravity. Now, on camera you won't see my feet. It's because my lens isn't wide enough, or actually it's because I'm wearing white socks, and if my wife sees me wearing white socks on camera, I'll never hear the end of it. But let's stick to the lens as the primary excuse. I'm going to show you how I go about planing this section of lumber, and that's why I have it longer than you may otherwise see on other demonstrations. What I've seen at shows and beginners use my hand planes is they always want to start and finish the cut in a single motion, and that is not the best way to do it, and it's not efficient. So what I show them to do is you bend your knees, you lower your center of gravity, and then you get your hand plane into the cut. As I'm pushing the hand plane through the cut, I'm walking all along the edge of my workbench. So I'm lowering, I'm bending my knees, and I'm walking along the side of my workbench. And in effect, as I'm walking, my feet and my legs are pushing the hand plane all along and finishing off the cut. I'm locking in my shoulders and my elbows, and I'm holding them stationary against the force that's being provided by my lower body and my legs. And that will allow you to plane much longer than you think you might or might have ever been possible. So we've covered doing the mechanical adjustments on the hand plane, help you with that. We've had a look at the grip, we've had a look at the pressure down onto the hand plane, and finally is how you use your body to conserve energy and plane accurately for longer. As we come to the end of this video, I'd like to leave you with a final instruction or a suggestion, if I may. This video will likely launch on a Friday, be it in the morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. But this coming weekend is go into your workshop, clamp a piece of waste wood in a tail vise or in your main vise, face vise. Sharpen the blade on your favorite hand plane. If you only have one hand plane, you're limited as far as choice go. But get the blade sharp and then start practicing. Use the tips and techniques I've given you in this video and just make shavings. Don't worry about getting the lumber flat. Don't worry about getting it square or straight. Don't worry about accuracy in any way, shape or form. Just practice using your hand plane. Set the lateral adjustment. Push it left, push it right. See how much adjustment affects where the plane blade takes a cut. Set up for a deep cut, and then ease out the cut. But don't take up the slack or the backlash. See what happens. See how the cut depth changes by not having the yoke engaging into the recesses I showed you earlier during the video. And just have fun making shavings. Look at the shavings coming out of the mouth. Look at what that tells you about where the plane is taking a cut. Is it a deep cut? Look at the shavings and look at what they tell you about what the hand plane is doing. And just have fun. And don't stop until such time as a piece of lumber like this is as small as a match and you are knee deep in shavings. There's therapy involved by sweeping up shavings and cleaning up your workshop floor after a while of using a hand plane. Just have fun. By the way, as far as accuracy goes, next time I see you here on my channel, I'll show you the technique that I use to set up my hand planes before I start using them to give me the best possible chance to get a flat workpiece or get a square section of lumber. But until I see you again next time, have fun over the weekend and have fun using your hand plane. And until I see you again next time, as always, thank you for joining me on my channel and in my workshop. But until then, I hope you have a good one. Cheers.